In this video, we'll be looking at a TikTok from a confused British woman to demonstrate just how deranged those of a woke mindset are when it comes to the topic of gender ideology. This woman identifies as non-binary, thus because she's part of a minority group, she has to be oppressed. That being said, I'm left-handed, I'm part of a minority group, the difference being that being non-binary and being left-handed is actually a thing. This person goes by they-them pronouns, obviously, and feels the need to educate the viewer in the way that so many non-binary people, or just those talking about gender ideology, do. We have to see the world the way that they do, not from the evidence of our own eyes. On her TikTok bio, she describes herself as an educator. So everyone, prepare to be educated.
There is absolutely a gender ideology which is being forced upon the world by certain people in it at the moment. This ideology proclaims that there are only two possible genders, men and women, that these genders present themselves in certain specific ways, that these genders have certain characteristics, often talked about as being masculine or feminine, that these genders fulfill certain roles within society and within relationships. There's also the idea that this gender is directly related to and maps perfectly onto the sex that you were assumed to be at birth. Therefore, anybody who creates small gametes, sperm, will become a man. Anyone who creates large gametes, eggs, will become a woman. And yes, this is an ideology. It is an idea that people wish to share about how they believe the world works. This is inspired.
Let's begin. The gender ideology that's been forced on the world. This is the ideology that human beings are male or female. Until very, very recently, we were all happy to go along with that. Yes, back in the 1990s, occasionally there'd be a case of a young man, and it was always men, with severe gender dysphoria, and maybe occasionally you'd see a man in a dress. Now, most of the time that was confusing. On a Saturday night, it was a bloody good laugh. Yet her attitudes around the roles that men and women play, she sounds like she's from the fucking 1970s, and yes, she's dressed like some incarnation of Doctor Who, so maybe she's just got here. But the way she's banging on, it's like women don't have the right to vote. And in the modern Western world, I think there are very few people, apart from a few religious nutjobs, who have these clearly defined roles for what men and women can and cannot do outside of, well, biology. Because no one assumes what someone's gender is at birth. It isn't an assumption. Biology is a fucking fact. Yet she defeats her own argument by pointing out the biological differences between men and women. Aside from birth defect, injury, disability, or the menopause, women produce eggs. Men, we can produce sperm our whole lives. So what's she banging on about? Biology is fact. It's not an ideology, it's not an idea. And being a woman dressed like a man with a shit haircut won't change that.
Of there being a variety of ideas about gender throughout time, throughout history, and throughout place. In some places, they have more than two genders. In some places, they have many. In some places, gender doesn't correspond to biological sex as much. All of this is to say that gender is a biopsychosocial construct. Now, bear with me. A construct does not mean something doesn't exist in the same way most of society is constructed as an idea that we have agreed on. Like your job is a construct, but if you don't turn up for work, you're probably going to get a very real outcome. Gender is the same. It has real-world outcomes, real-world implications. It is a biopsychosocial construct, meaning there are some roots in biology, there are also roots in psychology and in sociology. Our understanding of what gender means is constantly changing and evolving. It has never been set in one particular place or time. Therefore, I would suggest that in saying things like, I am non-binary, I am not trying to put an ideology onto you. I'm simply saying that more than this singular actual ideology, the idea that there can only be two genders, there is more to the world than that.
A biopsychosocial construct. Here we see wokeness at its finest. Clearly she's well educated and has a large vocabulary. So now it's just word salad. It's used as many big words as possible and hope that the plebs don't understand. And she talks about societies with more than two genders, but then in true woke fashion doesn't mention any of them by name. And by saying she is non-binary, she's forcing her ideology onto everyone else. We can all see that she's female. That is a fact. It cannot be changed. And yes, she's married to another woman. In 2025, who honestly gives a shit? So either she's bisexual or she's a lesbian. Yet, I suspect, where we used to see pray the gay away, it's now become trans the gay away, because she always dresses in a typically masculine way. I think there's also a feeling that because in 2025, as I said, no one really gives a shit about sexuality anymore, there's nothing shocking in it. But this person, I'm guessing, is desperate for attention. So being a lesbian won't get her any oppression points, but being non-binary, that's exciting. Look at me, I'm so different.
Than that. I'm just saying that there are other options. That's not an ideology. I'm not dogmatically saying, well, this is the way the world is. I'm saying, I don't know, the world could be many different possibilities. Some people have incorrectly said, well, that's very narcissistic of you, because they misunderstand the meaning of the word narcissist, because they conflate this ability to self-actualize and understand myself with self-obsession. These two things are not the same. I know I'm non-binary and have explored what gender means to me because I have insight, and I've spent some time working that out for myself about where I sit in society. That's not narcissistic, that's just literally working out who I am as a person. But finally, consider who benefits from this gender ideology, this idea that there can only be two genders and that there are immutable character traits. There are things about you that were predetermined that you cannot change no matter what you do. Generally, it's systems of power, because systems of power require these immutable character traits in order to say some people are just naturally better and some people are naturally worse. Some people are on top.
Some people have called her a narcissist. Yes, I'd go with that, and again, there's more word salad to try and break that up. But self-actualizing doesn't change the fact she's still female. Yes, she may know more about herself, but she's still a woman, and given that her content is nothing but lecturing people on her being non-binary, I would say that is self-obsession. She's explored her identity. That's great, I'm happy for her. I expect she spent many, many hours with an extremely patient therapist. A therapist who's had many, many holidays off the back of the sessions that they them have paid for. But this assumption that it's systems of power that benefit from just having the two genders. No, it isn't systems of power. Those are facts. And yes, in the Western world, we still have a male-dominated society. But that doesn't mean that men are better. It means that men and women are different. For example, women are much better at having children than men, but a man still needs to be involved. Whether he's there, emptying his love eggs into the lady doing the deed, or wanking into a cup at some clinic. It's really basic. She can call herself non-binary, but she's married to another woman. Therefore, without outside intervention, neither of them will ever get pregnant. In the same way that if you have a couple of gay men, whoever the bottom is in that relationship, it doesn't matter how often or how vigorously his partner shoots his cocksnot up his jacksie, he's never going to be with child.
Are on top, and therefore some people are not. The patriarchy is a wonderful example. If you look at people saying, well, men are just naturally better and there's nothing you can do about that, you can't self-determine. These are traits that men have, only men have it, and those are the good traits that are going to run the society. If people turn around and say, actually, I don't think men are innately any of those things, I think that people have the ability to self-actualize. We are not set in stone things from the beginning of our conception. We are, in fact, constantly ever-changing, ever-evolving beings who are able to determine who we are and who we wish to be outside of constraints such as gender. That's a really exciting thing, but it is also very threatening to any of these world orders that rely on you feeling like you are innately something that cannot be changed. But you can be changed. You are constantly a being who can create and self-create. There are some things, yes, well, God, the image of God made you, and the religious institutions who really have to uphold that, because when you start getting ideas about how to become realized in yourself as a fully realized, full of potential.
She bangs on for about another minute on that TikTok, but she's very eloquent, her flow's excellent, and I like that part of the TikTok. She's being very positive. Yes, live your best life, be all you can be, and if that means you have to be a self-aggrandising androgynous pain in the arse, then so be it. Yet the fact remains, non-binary is just a label. She is female. In my belief system, non-binary isn't really a thing, because there's nothing to prove it's a thing. She doesn't know what it's like to feel male, or even to be another woman. She only has her own experience. Like many non-binary people, I suspect that's her entire personality. Now, she has a wonderful command of the English language, and I hope she's happy in her relationship. Yet I suspect once you scratch the surface, she's completely hollow inside. And that she dedicates so much of her time explaining to other people what it is to be non-binary. I have to ask, who's she really trying to convince? Anyway, that's the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you leave a like, a comment or share the video, that really helps the algorithm. If you would like to support me in making these videos, there's a link in the description to buy me a coffee or to join my Patreon. And as ever, thanks for watching. If you have two gay men, whoever's in the bottom of that relationship, it doesn't matter how often his partner takes him up the garden path to empty out his love piss. That's fucking love piss. It remains human beings cannot change sex. So, oh dear. Pardon? Thus, we can understand that the fucking bollocks. There is a really positive message there. She's eloquent, talking about essentially living your best life, being all you can be. And if that means being an irritating, self-aggrandizing, fucking bollocks, societies that have more than two genders, but then doesn't give any examples. It's no different to me saying, well, there is a land where all the men have two heads, but I can't remember what it's called, and I didn't take any pictures when I was there.